Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a la octava edición del Festival Ídem que celebra cada año la Casa Encendida. Este año inauguramos el festival desde la Casa plataforma digital de la Casa Encendida, reuniendo artistas desde muchos lugares del mundo, participando con sus piezas y dialogando en los encuentros que hemos organizado. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en esta edición. Yo soy Marisa Lull, comisaria del festival. Ídem 2020 se presenta como eje de diálogo entre las ediciones pasadas y las del futuro, invitando a artistas que han estado en el festival o estarán en el futuro próximo. Para conversar, debatir, reflexionar e inspirarnos sobre el momento en que vivimos. La idea de transformar este momento en oportunidad, ilusión y futuro se encuentra ahora en el debate artístico y social. En esta versión híbrida llena de encuentros online entre artistas tenemos este año a Nora Chipaumire, Chiara Bersani, Bárbara Bañuelos, Pipo del Bono, Tania Aljuri, Tomás Aragay y Sofía Asencio, Lena Blue, Radio Nicosia y Milo Rau, algunos de los cuales nos acompañarán con sus trabajos. Como Nora Chipaumire con el vídeo de #punk realizado por Ari Markopoulos, cordata de Chiara Bersani, donde colabora Bárbara Bañuelos. Pipo del Bono nos enlaza a su página web para que veamos 4 de sus obras. Con un vídeo online de 20 minutos se presentan en Madrid por primera vez el grupo afrofuturista más sorprendente del momento, Furumitsiki, provenientes directos de un futuro donde los humanos se han reconciliado con la Tierra y consigo mismos. La película System K de Renaud Barret y el documental Hate Radio de Milo Rau y de su colectivo International Institute of Political Murder. Y como punto final de esta edición, celebrando la vuelta al espacio escénico y físico, la compañía Societat Dr. Alonso actuará en el patio de la Casa Encendida con su obra sobre la belleza. Estoy muy contenta de comenzar hoy estos encuentros con Nora Chipaumire, como ya hicimos el año pasado con un encuentro en vivo y con su pieza #punk, que forma parte de su trilogía #punk, 100% pop and star nigger. Os leo una brevísima bio de Nora. Una más extensa la podéis encontrar en su web, compañiachipaumire.com. Nora Chipaumire nació en 1965 en lo que entonces se conocía como Umtali, Rhodesia, ahora mismo Mutare, Zimbabue. Ella es un producto de la educación colonial para africanos solamente, escolarización del grupo B. Nora ha realizado otros estudios en la Universidad de Zimbabue, Derecho, y Mills College, Danza, en Oakland, California. Well, hello, Nora Chipaumire, to la Casa Encendida, to Ídem Festival. This year, very, very, very strange year. How are you? First of all, how are you?
I am well, thank you very much. Happy to participate in Ídem Festival again, this time virtually from my apartment in Brooklyn. How are you, Madrid? How are you, Marisa?
Very well, actually. Very, very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you.
It's, to have you and to start again, like from the beginning. It looks like we're starting again. Like we started last year with you. That it was great to have you with your #punk and with your conference. Yeah.
So
very good.
Totally remember last year so fondly and wish we were back at last year because 2020 has been a phenomenal year of flat lines. So yes, it's good to remember last year. But also super, super happy to start off this festival with you in 2020. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Actually, we couldn't expect, no, what was going to happen. Absolutely, it was like impossible at this moment. Or this excitement that we had, this happiness, all these wishes, to the new year, were not like this at all.
No expectation of being in this space. It came suddenly and very quickly. Yeah.
We were talking to the unexpected confinement, and when we were talking before during these days, because we've been connected during
Yes.
all year, no?
Yes.
I'm talking about this reality.
Planning.
Worrying for each other also.
And worrying for each other, yes. And checking in on each other, yes. Yeah.
So I would like to know a little bit about how did you experience how did you experience the confinement and this particular time, even though now it looks like it's far away, that is not not that much, but it looks something different, but you are still there at home and I'm still here now at home.
Yes, yes. What a difficult question to answer. In a concise way, because for me the confinement began in March, and today's September 1st, and I am still in confinement. I am still in my apartment in Brooklyn, New York. None of the typical work that would have been available has returned. So I have experienced this as just a loss, a massive loss, and a shutdown of work. By work, I mean the touring work that I do. I'm a touring artist. All the theaters closed their houses and either postponed or cancelled their performance series. So I am one of the thousands of artists who were affected by this. So none of that has returned for me. So I am still experiencing the confinement in the same way that I experienced it in March, which is an inability to move, an inability to continue with the live work that takes up pretty much, I would say, 80% of my existence.
Yes, because you were touring nonstop at that time. You were more. I mean, you were never at home. Actually, you were practically never in your house. You just returned to do the taxes, as I remember.
This is actually true. I think for the past 5 years, from Portrait of Myself as My Father into the trilogy, which includes #Punk, which we performed in Madrid last year, we have been definitely touring a lot. Both these works have been in demand. So this is it's the first time I have been in New York consistently for 8 months since I moved to New York in 2003. It's the first time. So yes, it's kind of interesting to realize how much one's kind of address doesn't necessarily mean you live there. New York has been always a place where I kind of lay my hat, but the world is my home, I feel. Mm-hmm. So I've had to acquaint myself with the apartment and did a lot of spring cleaning, chores that most people who stay at home do. So, for the first time, really, in that many years that I've been able to be at home. So that I would say this does have its upside, even though the ability to be outside in New York City has been pretty much shut down. So I've been in my apartment and been able to go to the grocery stores and being in Zoom Nation, all this time. But it is, the past 5 years were amazing with the touring, which we all loved. We are really made for touring. We love touring. We have no touring sickness whatsoever. And yes, I did return home almost every time to do my taxes. death and taxes, the only sure things, and then return on the road. And I do miss the life of the road, the performing in front of people, the hotels, all that drama of traveling.
Mm-hmm. And this time also that you have enjoyed, as I see, your time doing your home organization and going to the grocery store, but also I think you have been working very hard with people, in the Zoom rooms in the
Yes.
Zoom world. As you said, with where have you been working, or which project have you developed something new?
Yes, actually, that's an important question also, because I guess like all of us, we shifted our working habits to this digital platform, the Zoom Nation. At first, in March, there were a lot of demands for content to fill up the theater spaces that were now going online, for material to kind of fill up those spaces. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of providing manifestos, zines. We participated on a museum exhibit, I think in Slovenia, that was online. Another museum gallery exhibit, an online exhibit that was in Paris. Participated in these kind of ways that needed digital material to fill up the spaces where humans would have been walking in. I've also created a digital work for the National Arts Festival of South Africa, and I'm currently building another digital work that is for the Institute of Contemporary Arts at the University of Cape Town, also in South Africa. I forget many other little things that I've probably done, including conversations, lots and lots of conversations that have happened via this platform. Pretty much more work beyond maybe even the touring. I would say the density of the demand to be online has been super, super, super great, including working on my libretto for the opera that I'm building, that has also occupied quite a bit of my time.
And also, I think you have an invitation soon to work at the School of Resistance. I don't know if we can talk about that in Milo Rau's Engante.
Yes, including participating. In fact, NT Ghent did ask me to provide some written material for their golden book, which I did. And so this would be the second work that I would be doing for them, which is kind of an audio-visual work as opposed to a text work. So yes, I will be participating in a conversation for the School of Resistance, with NT Ghent, yes.
Okay. And, talking about another subject, and very important subject that I'm always very intrigued about your opinion, and that it's about the pending dialogue that you say that Europe have with Africa. That it's about, talking about dependency, abuse, still colonization, the underground colonization that we still, I don't know if it's underground or on the surface, because I think it's in the surface, but the still colonization that Africa is suffering, and all this, that I think well, this is like the negative, like maybe part of.
Yeah, this conversation, this ongoing conversation, I think Africa and Europe has been in conversation since 1440. It's been centuries of this conversation, which seems like a monologue, really, a European monologue.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's not a dialogue. It is a monologue.
It has not been a dialogue at all, and it continues. And I think we see in this time of the global pandemic just how big the divide is between Europe and the rest of the world that has, and the world that does not have. And I would say the majority of Africans do not have. And I would say I have felt that the majority of the conversations I have done, the work that I have done online, has been with the West. Even though I was very proud to do the work for the South African platform, but in part of this disequilibrium has to do with the lack of data, the availability of basic electricity, so that you can, be online. This kind of things. So yeah, there is. I think this moment has shown us of some real basic, crude differences, heightened by the very, very brazen murdering of Black people in the U.S. So, I would say the way that state instruments such as the police have been used against the Black bodies since time immemorial. In this time of confinement in the U.S., we've been able to really witness just how that functions. If anybody had a doubt that there was this huge gap between the way the state regards the Black body versus the non-Black body, I think the what people are calling the Red Summer has definitely brought these questions of the policing of Black bodies a great deal, which I think Africa is policed in the same way. It's policed very heavily economically, so that each month we have thousands and thousands of African bodies that are washed ashore in the Mediterranean or in the deserts, in North Africa, or in the townships because of lack of adequate water, clean water, adequate housing, adequate basic needs for healthcare, education, all this kind of stuff. I think this is an ongoing concern. The resources that Africa has continue to be mined and used for the well-being of Europe and the West in general, America, whatever you name it. Whereas we see that very little of those resources return to benefit those Black bodies that are on the African continent or even elsewhere,
Yeah, I jumped really this question. I jumped to the question that I wanted to ask you about, and I went to straight forward to the dialogue between Africa and Europe. But I really wanted to ask you about the Black Spring, and that it really was amazing because you had living at the same time, like the confinement and the return of Black Lives Matter, the Black Spring.
Yeah.
This year. Yeah.
Red Summer, Black Spring, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I've been saying since Black Lives as a organization kind of emerged that Black life has always mattered. The world cannot function without Black life. To provide, and Black life is a resource. It's a fundamental resource. It is the raw good that was being traded, across the Atlantic to work to build these nations that are North and South America. It is also the resource that builds the colonial empire on the African continent, and the resource that continues to supply cheap labor everywhere. So yes, it was incredible for me. I read the Black life on the American continent in the same way that I read the Black African life on the African continent. We are all at the mercy of a huge state control. It's bleak. It's really bleak, the murdering of Black bodies. Fortunately for the U.S., it seems that young Black people are courageous enough to take matters into their own hands and go into the streets and demand a change. We are yet to see the young Africans really rise up against their own oppressive governments. On the continent. Yes, there was a lot of global universal support of Black Lives Matter, but I'm just like, come on, young Africa, we live in conditions that are intolerable. What is there for young Africa? How long do we have to wait for our governments to stop selling our countries, our resources? And even importing rubbish. I mean, there was something I was reading the other day that there's so much plastic in America. The thinking is to go dump it in Kenya, So we export all our intellectual power, our natural resources, and look at the state of the Congo Basin. Look at the state of all our economies. We export everything for benefit of getting foreign currency. And yet we import plastic, rubbish that is not biodegradable. What are we doing?
Wow. Wow. Well, yes, so much. There is so much. Yeah, plastic is a thing that it's only like just one program. We could do just one program talking about that issue, the huge issue.
Yeah.
But flipping the coin about this, we always have this negative or bad experience about the bad part of the look of the continent. We also have this some positive, and encouraging that it's something. There is something that I read that I think is from Milo Rau that I am not 100% sure, but I could say almost 90%. That he says that in a way all look to Africa. That says in a way all look to Africa like one of the virgin places of the world to go in search of an encouraging message or of a new model of cultural, artistical, intellectual, and philosophical renovation. I mean, I think we are all thinking about that. Also, now tell me, and I will follow you.
I think that to point out the challenges around Africa and its position in the world is not to say they aren't good things that are happening. There are always good things that are happening. I mean, people are working and trying to think through problems. However, there is a fundamental imbalance in the relationship which people aren't as able to wrestle, which is capitalism. The way capital functions really tilts the balance against Africa. Of course, we could say as the oldest habited planet on Earth, the African body and the African landmass contains knowledge that has yet to be fully understood or even exploited. And I would say by the Africans themselves primarily. The ways we regard relationship with nature, for example, really needs to be digested and understood by the rest of the world. We never thought that commercial farming was good. It was always understood that destroyed the land. You could plow and leave the land fallow and move on. I mean, some of these things have become global kind of ways of dealing with stuff. But a fundamental relationship with the land and with nature that says that the human is not above nature, and the human does not work in this kind of godlike way that Europe does, which is to conquer nature, but to be one with nature. I think these are. I don't want to read too much into what Milo Rau thinks the knowledge is.
I know. Not only Milo Rau, but I feel that. I feel also that because, for example, in the festival, Ídem Festival, we are having like products that come from Africa, that they are the result of an aggression. For example, we have this group Fulu Miziki, that it's a group from the Democratic Republic of Congo, that they work with all the recycling instruments. They work and they build all with that. I mean, also we have this film System K, that it works also. It says, talks about the artists that they are in the streets taking all this rubbish and building art out of it. And of course, these are happening because of the negative, because we went there and we took the coltan to explode and to use to make our cellular phones to do our all the exploitation. They are just transforming it in something.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the ability to recycle. The problem is the problem with
this sounds very ingenious, very naive.
I mean, it's
in the middle of this huge.
Africans have always been praised for their ability to recycle, to work with the poorest of materials and make something fantastic out of it. But at the same time, it's like this is a need that comes out of poverty of receiving all these dumped things, what's left over. For instance, I also know somebody who is doing a project with clothes. There's so much unused clothing, secondhand clothing, that comes from outside of Africa that's just dumped in Africa.
Well, the thing is that I think there is another lesson, Nora, out there, because we think, like, as capitalism thinks that everything is infinite, that we can produce that endless, that this cannot happen anymore. I think this idea of recycling is showing, at least showing that there is not an endless production.
Well, but I would say beyond recycling, I think it would be nice to think of not even creating products that are not biodegradable. The populations that is rural would have wooden plates, things that would not need,
I know,
would return to the land. So I want to say, sure, we can really think of ways in which African artists, musicians, the shamanic practices, the animist practices could be useful to the world, but then again, I feel like people want to take some of these things and make an industry out of them, as opposed of learning to undo what is wrong. Just make brand them so it becomes part of the kind of capitalist kind of thing. I mean, I want to be hopeful, but I'm not as hopeful. Also, I'm something of a pessimist in the relationships between Africa and Europe.
I know it's very difficult to be optimistic now. I think it was easier to be optimistic before the pandemic. Now we are a little bit more.
I think also it may have been easier to be optimistic, in the 60s. 50s, 60s, as people were kind of moving towards independence and thinking that something fundamental, a fundamental change was happening to them. Now that we know better, that we just got superficial political independence, and we're still economically dependent. So even this pandemic for me this pandemic only kind of makes apparent something that was always kind of there.
Well, Nora,
I don't need to be such a downer.
Wow, no, it's true. All is true that what you're saying, and I completely. I'm with you. I agree, but at the same time, also I have this intuition, and that you also, I think, have about. No intuition. Maybe it's a need of surviving feeling that we get into this positive thinking about the recycling, not only the recycling something material, but of recycling of the mind, of the spirit, of the possibility of going farther somewhere else.
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic if we talk about sharing ideas, like thought processes. I'm optimistic that, we have the capacity to learn new ways of thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I'm optimistic about, and especially for younger people, who have the rest of all these problems to inherit. I'm optimistic about their capacity to analyze, to think through things, and to question power and the status quo.
Yeah, I think they are quite ready, though. Some of them.
Yeah, many of them.
Many of them. Without leaving Africa, you've talked about animism and all this world that we are so interested about. And I would like you to talk about something that I know that most of the people that know you don't know that you are working on, and it's Naka. Naka. N-H-A-K-A.
Naka. Yeah, Naka. It's a physical practice. Well, not just physical practice. It's work. How do we discipline the body daily? So there's a physical aspect to Naka, which is this daily rigor, the daily practice. As people who use the body as the primary tool, whether you want to call it dance or live performance, it's through this instrument that is the body. So Naka is a way to think through the disciplining of the body. If you want to be Europeanist about it, you would say it's a technique. But I prefer to use the word practice, because it brings us closer to what it truly is, almost in the way yoga is a practice that is also not simply and truly only physical. It includes, a spiritual aspect, which is animist. And animism for me is this relationship to nature. and with our past and our futures, that it's connected. It's not, our futures are not in the future. Our future are now. Our past is not in the past. Our past is now. And we hold all these truths, these truths in our bodies. So we have the task of keeping the body healthy for the work at hand. So how do we do that from this awareness that we are not above, the trees, the land, the mountains? We're not above, but we are one off these elements. And what is that way of moving the musculature so that the body is more able to receive the nourishment that the universe has, and also able to transmit that nourishment back to the universe and to all living things. That's what NACA is. We have produced a books. It's a lifelong process, which I hope will produce as many books as possible. But we have been able to print our first book, Book One, NACA Book One. And that is available actually for purchasing, and also through our website you can see the work. Also, Book Two is also online now, and we're working towards publishing that as a physical book. What is the point of all this? Is to kind of make available knowledge, to make it available and shareable. To everybody, to people who care about how they take care of their mind, body, and spirit, and are maybe keen to go through it from different ways of looking at the world, and not just kind of an imperialistic way of looking at the world.
There is about NACA, there is a very nice description that you do, and I'm gonna read it. That is a cartography of the animist body and radical Black African presence.
Yes.
Animist technology, practice, and process. I think it's like a very sophisticated description, but it's very powerful at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We try to use also scientific language to explain this place of animism, which has historically been reduced to kind of voodoo and witchcraft, but is really pure science.
Mm-hmm. Also, one of an idea that I think that you work, or how do you work about the idea of community versus individuality in NACA?
Well, you're never an individual, really. I mean, of course, you're born alone as an individual, and you kind of die alone as an individual. This is kind of a simple observation, but a more complex reality is that we are already born in community, for particularly those of us who believe in ancestrality, that we carry our ancestors with us, and we also carry our future unborn with us, so that the one individual is already a multiplicity, a community. And that, when we work in larger groups of more than one, then we are already in a very, very complex community, because each body is coming with its own past and future. So once you have two or more people, you have multiple pasts, you have multiple futures, as well as multiple nows. So the idea of community that we're working with is not, kind of the typical, like, the artist goes into a community, say the the artists in Madrid make a community. No, it's like, well, there's that one level, but there's also just the community that the bodies already hold. That it's not just one thing. So there's many complex layers. Is really close to what quantum physics is about. So that if we're even 2 or 3 or 4 people, we are in an extremely dense, complex community. So community doesn't have to be even more than that. But if it's more, if it's 2 or more, that is a complex community already.
Mm-hmm. Let me also read some notes that I took from you in Africa, actually.
Thank you.
I study Naka with you.
Yes.
That you said, just a few notes. That you say, my work is encouraging people to find their own dance to heal the world. For my culture, the artist is the healer. Another one, push deep down inside so you become extremely vulnerable outside. This one, it's so beautiful. I mean, because this one, they're all beautiful, but this one I think is very particular. I mean, it's something that you have to maybe explain us. This push deep down inside so you become extremely vulnerable outside.
I will try. A great deal of the thinking that happens in the community, let's say in sharing with others, is that then there is a greater presence, greater than myself. So some of these articulations are presences of others who walk with me. But the idea is that the deeper you go inside into who you are, into your past, it allows for a softer shell. It allows for a knowledge that that allows the exterior to be more sociable, more vulnerable, more accessible. So if I know that my ancestors were complicit in selling the land in Zimbabwe, for instance, I can have a more generous relationship with those who are presently selling the land in Zimbabwe. I think that's what I mean. The more you know of how you are also complicit with the world, the more generosity you can assure or extend to everybody else. Just knowing all our past allows us to have a more loving present and future, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you. Also, you said we are one with nature, that you said already. We enter into the space of work with a lot of humility. That is,
yes,
we have to practice this also.
Humility and respect. Respect. And I would say, also knowing how small the human is in comparison to the entirety, even as a ratio, how small you are in relationship to the room that you are, to the building that you are in, to the neighborhood that you are in, and then extend that outwards. I think it allows us to have humility.
Yeah, also, it reminds me that what you say now, it reminds me one thing that you were doing, that you were reminded us, just use the space that you need. Don't take more space than what you need. We really repeat that all the time, and it was very interesting because we are all the time taking more space than in the world, in our daily life. Sometimes we are occupying others' spaces, but we should just use what we need, because if you don't
yes, if I may just go back to this question of capitalism and imperialism, the idea of always going outward and conquering more and more and more, and then very few benefit from those things that have been conquered. If we were to really think about what working through decoloniality is, what is not as a theory, as a practice. If we can practice to only use what we need, not extend the way we stand in the world too wide, just stand in balance, in complete and utter balance, with only just the right amount of space that you need. I mean, it's that thought goes through almost everything that you do. You don't have to over it just because you have tons of stuff in your refrigerator. You don't have to overspeak just because you have the capacity to speak. What does it mean to use just what you need, not less than what you need, but just what you need for the health of your organism, which also then means, as a gesture, there's an economy of means. There's an economy. You're not abusing the energy, just because you have it.
Another one, beautiful, you're surrendered by gravity.
Yeah, of course, gravity is a huge force. Come on now, it's like recognize that there is gravity. So you have to surrender to it rather than try to defy it and then push out your chest, which makes your spine compressed and causes all kinds of other unhealthy situations to kind of emerge in your body just because you want to puff out your chest, and that's supposed to be, in a kind of non-African way of looking at the body, like a powerful position. Like, what if we got rid of and accepted that we were not as powerful and that gravity was more powerful? I mean, it has something to do with the humility that recognizing, as we should all by now understand, that nature is more powerful. Which I guess that means whoever created nature, whether it's God, whatever, the supreme being, is more powerful.
And another one that also, if you know how to walk in front, you should know how to walk backwards. This was this
Yes, right. I think by that I also mean, the kind of going forwardness, the desire for the future, should also be an obvious desire for the past. If we can go forwards, we can go backwards. We can also go sideways. We can go around. That there should be a really complex, dynamic way in which we move in the world.
Actually, there is a very interesting part of your work that I love, especially that I have experienced it several times, being in #punk, when you just break the wall and go out and you leave the audience in your back, and you just do your thing. That it has so much humor, and at the same time it's very interesting how you experience, as an audience, your position, and how you experience that. How did you work on that concretely? Because we are gonna see #punk also in the video.
Yeah. So, well, I mean,
all these spaces
the cartography. I mean, back to this idea of the cartography, or the organization of space. And I have a real strong belief that the front side of our body is as beautiful and as interesting as our back sides of our bodies. Which goes really against some of the laws that govern the organization of movement from Louis XIV and the whole French European kind of ballet way of looking at the body, which was, kind of almost, you made it flat and two-dimensional. That the back was supposed to be ugly and you should never turn your back. For instance, that would be disrespectful. But the back is such a beautiful, for me, it is absolutely exquisite and beautiful as much as the front. And so, and it allows when we do, for instance, move and we are in our own corner, it allows for the entire audience to look with us beyond, not just look at us as our backs, but to look with us beyond wherever we are looking at. So we are at that moment. The performers and the audience is one eye. It's one eye. Mm-hmm. It's not two separate eyes. There are other dynamics when we are looking at each other, where this is about a dialogue between us and them. But if we are all looking the same direction, we are all singing from the same hymn sheet at that point. So I'm interested in these circular ways that make the public complicit. Okay,
now I got it. The idea that you put us all looking at the wall because you wanted all of us looking at the same place, because the aim was the Victorian English British.
Yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed very much that moment. Actually, it's one of my favorite ones. Because I think it's very has a lot of humor. Actually.
It has, but it's also very much, I say, it's against this Victorian kind of thing. But I would say, the politics in that organization of space is also interesting to me. Miles Davis was very famous for turning away from the public. So there's this thing of when the black bodies are in performance, and usually black bodies are supposed to be pleasing, entertaining, non-threatening, to be available to the public to be consumed. So that turning away removes that availability too. It also says, no, I'm not here for you to just consume me as an object. I can also be here for myself,
Wow, yeah. So, Nora, we have also, you did for us, related with #punk, you did for us a great playlist that we are going to have also for the festival. That is,
which I was super happy to do. I was super happy for this invitation to make a playlist. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know this, but in my very young years, maybe 16 upwards, to the time I actually left Zimbabwe, I was a radio DJ as well as a club DJ. Mm-hmm. So I have a profound relationship with music, and making playlists. It just gives me so much joy and returns me to kind of the foundation. Like I am here speaking with you now because I went, my coming into being as a thinker, as an artist, starts in radio.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, you have to come back to the radio, actually.
I love radio, yes.
So you made at least I know like Patti Smith, Sex Pistols, The Clash, Pink Floyd, David Bowie, Talking Heads, Police, but also you have a lot of African, that
Mutabaruka,
Jamaican, Jessie Darling.
This is an artist who is actually a visual artist that I think is so irreverent. She is so punk. So I really salute her. Jessie Darling, yeah.
Then Sly and Robbie, that this I think I knew them.
Yeah, drum and bass masters, Jamaican, also Jamaican.
But, Mantonella Queens, Thomas
Mahotella Queens, yes, very, very, very punk, fantastic, seminal artist from South Africa.
Unlimited Niggas.
Unlimited. This Blacks Unlimited is Thomas Mafumo's band, and you can tell, by its title, by their title, Blacks Unlimited, that the idea was to really remove any limits from their imaginations.
Well, Jimi Hendrix also, but the thing is that here is like nigga. It's all the time nigga word. It appears like hundreds of times.
So basically the playlist that I shared with you is also kind of a way of making manifestos, a way of making refusals, so that it lives within the thinking of the trilogy of #punk, 100% pop, star nigger. So the return of this refrain nigger and this word is supposed to be most uncomfortable and a reminder to the world that of this imbalance of the relationship that is both about the skin but also about a psychological kind of relationship with Black people.
So nigga, what means for you? What does it mean for you?
For me, this word it means those people who produce without ever receiving any acknowledgement or any remuneration for their work. That is what a nigger is to me. It's basically a slave. And my position, which hasn't changed since I kind of came into political awareness, was that to be Black was to be in this position of always producing and never having any kind of an acknowledgement, and let alone any kind of payment, any kind of restitution that would make the work you produce worthwhile, like worthwhile for you, So that the Black body is in this constant state of being extracted, that the Black body is a raw material and that the world extracts from this thing. So that's that, and the whole thing can be summed up in this word nigger. No sovereignty, no nothing.
Actually, we haven't seen it in Madrid yet. #punk, 100% pop and star nigger. It really will be great if you come soon to Madrid and do this trilogy, because I think it's like a very important pieces, a player. Well, a trilogy.
Yes, there are. What we did for you was #punk, which is one part of a 3-part kind of sound album, which so everything is through sound. The power of sound, the importance of sound as a philosophy, sound as a theory, sound as a physical thing that you kind of like the air we breathe. So 100% pop deals with pop music, the power of that popular platform through the work of the one and only Grace Jones. As a way to go into what is the pop image, what is the pop sound. And then Star Nigger deals with the Congolese rumba, because they aren't the biggest niggers are the Africans, but also to deal with the root of sound for me, which is Africa, and all the sound that is produced in the African diaspora. One can make really profound arguments of its root being an African thing, and that perhaps this is one of the produce, the one of the products, the products that Africa has continued to produce without fail, and it is sound, and that perhaps there is a way to think, to philosophize, to move towards liberation through sound.
And now you're working about an opera. You're working in an opera that it's called Nehanda, the Spirit Who Guides. That's the title that you have for now.
Yes, it's my first opera, so I'm kind of diving into a territory that is unknown to me. With working on in these two ways that I think are really important. One is that the opera form seems to me to be the last bastion of whiteness, It's the one place that you don't see flooded by others, and that the bourgeoisie. And when I say whiteness, I mean really the bourgeoisie, and that capitalist, that mercantile class that continues to reproduce itself massively through capital, amassing more and more and more capital, and then the opera is kind of one of those forms that is so protected. It's almost impossible to enter into the space if you're not one of the
it's very white, actually. It's a scene. That scene is very white scene. Absolutely, it's an art scene.
It's very white. It's so I'm very keen on how do we make our way into these spaces that remain super protected. The other important thing I'm working with is Nehanda, who is the guardian spirit of Zimbabwe. Also an institution, Banan, looms very high in the consciousness of Zimbabwean people. She is a revolutionary leader, guided us through the first Chimurenga, the second Chimurenga, and hopefully will guide us through the third Chimurenga, which is inevitably coming as the land is being returned, as being recolonized. So clearly, it seems to me that there will be a third Chimurenga, and she is the spirit, she's the entity, our Joan of Arc, if you want to look at it that way, that guides people into saying no, into this protest space. So I think it's a very timely kind of an important subject matter to deal with, continued refusals, continued gestures into emancipatory spaces. How do we free ourselves? How can we free ourselves? So for my answer towards this is to look towards the past, and to, whilst I'm doing that, find ways to indict imperial countries such as Great Britain for the historical wrongs that they meted upon the Shona people and the entire world, for that matter. So it's an opera that looks at the law, that looks at religious and spirituality, spiritual practices, and also the power of the female to lead. And I think, it's such an ambitious work that this form of opera, however white it could be a way in which all these issues are addressed.
Mm-hmm. Good. I have to say that Shona, because you said Shona, it's people from Zimbabwe, no?
Yes, Shona people, and I am Shona. They make up, the large population between the Zambezi River and the Limpopo River to the south. The Zambezi to the north, the Limpopo to the south, and goes all the way into Mozambique towards the Indian Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Wow, beautiful, Nora. We are finishing now because I think we have to finish. But I just wrote some questions, not some questions, but the lyrics that of one of the songs, the Rock and Roll Nigger, the Patti Smith, that the first two lines, she says, "Do you like the world around you? Are you ready to behave?" Well, yes, are you ready to behave, Nora?
No, and I don't like the world around me. And thank you, Miss Patti Smith, for having the courage as a female artist to articulate that refusal. Let it not be said that women don't stand up. Women do stand up, and I hope more and more of us do stand up and misbehave.
Good. This is a good end.
Thank you for this conversation. I enjoyed myself very much.
Thank you, Nora. We enjoy you very much, very, very much.
I wish I could have been there with you in person as we had hoped and planned, but this is the next best thing. So I thank you for the invitation, for the time spent with you. Thank you very much. Yes. Casa and Sandida, thank you for your work, everything you stand for. Very, very glad to be in this company.
Then when we finish this conversation, people are gonna be able to watch the video that Ari Markopoulos made.
Yes, the film of #punk, which is an artistic rendering of the work. Ari Markopoulos, my corroborator, fellow thinker, and just freedom fighter, bar none, was moving and walking with us in the creative process, coming to rehearsals, was there at the first performance before it went global. So the film that you'll see is Ari's understanding of how that work came into being, which captures some moments of the live performance, but also moments that the public really doesn't see how we build the work. So I think it's such a extreme generosity that Ari allows this film to be shared with everyone, and hopefully our friends and comrades in Madrid and beyond get to see and experience #punk slightly differently than the live performance.
Okay. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Marisa. Gracias.
Gracias. Invito a todo el mundo a seguir la programación del festival. Hoy podréis ver la película sobre #punk realizada por Ari Markopoulos y escuchar la playlist que Nora ha creado para el festival y que acompaña a #punk.